Hello YouTube, one and all. Okay, now this is my next review. I'm on a Sweet Valley kick. I want to do kind of a little series on this, so now I'm going after the big follow-up, the big one, the reunion, the return to the well. The honest to, what's the word I look for? The big 10-year high school reunion. Sweet Valley Confidential. You'll see several blogs on here about it, actually. A lot of people are going after this one, and the reviews are mostly scathing. I went on Amazon. Dear God. They weren't just reviews, they were death threats. These are the little girls who grew up gobbling these books up, absolutely in love with Forensic So grateful to her for giving them, for making them want to read, for giving them characters to believe in, to engage in characters that they dare to call their friends in their heart. And they wanted Francine dead for this one. Me? I kind of liked it. I liked it enough to buy it. It's a good book. A lot of people didn't like it, and I think I know why. It didn't quite end the way they wanted it to. Spoilers here, spoilers, so hopefully if you were... In this series, at the end of it all, we find out... Okay, for example, right about here. What terrible secret has torn Jessica and Elizabeth apart? It's like this. Those of you who really are students who studied the book series, you know how all the characters were constantly cheating on one another? I mean, nobody cheated more than Jessica. But Elizabeth cheated a lot. Elizabeth and Todd often cheated on each other because, well, it's a soap opera. But Todd often had a recurring affair with Jessica. That's right. He cheated on her with her identical twin sister. Oh yeah, this is a soap. Told you it was a soap. And the thing was, one day he finally stayed there. Back in college, there's another gimmick where the twins pull the old switcheroo and one pretends to be the other. Elizabeth's not there, so Todd goes far with Jessica. Jessica kind of impersonates Elizabeth, and it's kind of fun, and they have a lot of fun. And then, just for kicks, they wind up in each other's arms. These two keep winding... You see, Todd and Jessica kept winding up together in the books, because if you remember correctly, they kind of had a recurring thing going on from the very first book, from the beginning. Sweet Valley, Double Love, the series premiere, the very first one. Todd is interested in Elizabeth, and Elizabeth has had a thing for Todd for quite some time, since she saw him in kindergarten. But Jessica wants him for herself because the captain of the basketball team, he's Mr. Popular, he's Mr. Handsome, so she wants him all for her own son. So she tries to manipulate this set the series up what the book was like. There was a lot of affairs going on. Todd actually dated Jessica before he dated Elizabeth. And what happened was, there was a whole thing. I mean, she kept trying to convince, Jessica keeps manipulating in her own evil way, queen of manipulation. She once again tries to convince, she tries to convince Elizabeth that Todd wants her, not Elizabeth. And she tries to convince Todd that Elizabeth doesn't want anything to do with him. She already has everything. She wants Todd for herself. It's like Elizabeth just loves to play the field, but she has to go after the one actual guy that her sister has feelings for, at least for now. Right about then, you can see how evil is pretty much it's set up. The premise is established early on. The thing was they had a recurring affair throughout the book series. They kept going back to each other. All the characters cheated, but Todd continuously cheated with Jessica. Of all the affairs that kept going on, it was Todd and Jessica a back and forth thing. Before he was with Elizabeth, after, when they broke up, and during. And to me, those were always the most interesting ones, when Todd was fooling around with Jess. Because they're such exact opposites. I mean, Todd is so much like Elizabeth. He's as much an opposite of Jessica as Elizabeth herself really is. And it's kind of interesting to see them like back and forth. But at Sweet Valley Confidential, they flat out had an affair. They didn't just cheat, they had sex. They went all the way, and now they're together. I mean, Elizabeth was planning a big wedding for her and Todd, and he was fooling around with her sister, while Jessica herself was married. Of course. And she finally thinks, it's like, she just thinks this happened. She doesn't know about the other stuff. She doesn't know this has been going on for quite some time. And it's weird that there's a whole back and forth thing. Elizabeth is in New York City, miles away from Sweet Valley, trying to get professionally. She's writing for a magazine nobody's heard of, and she's trying to become not just a major reporter, but she's trying to get involved with the people in the theater. She has her eye on a guy. One guy's her boss, and another guy she wants to get with him, but when he reminds her too much of Todd, it's a buzzkill. Meanwhile, Todd and Jessica are back at their new rented townhouse together. Jessica is selling all natural bohemian kind of makeup. She's a cosmetic sales lady, and Todd is now writing a sports column. He's always intellectual, he's always a scholar, he was the perfect guy, and now he's found that he's a kind of now what to do? None of them can live with what they've done. Big, pure soap opera scandal. And also, Bruce Patman, who was the most obnoxious male alpha jerk in the book series, just the worst. He was like a male Jessica. These two were perfectly compatible. It's been said that when his parents died, he turned himself around and kind of softened. He warmed up. He became a better person after his parents' death. And he saw a real friend in Jessica. There's a shocking moment where he puts two and two together and he figures out about the affair that Jessica's having with Todd. And he's not quite sure if he should tell. Should he? Shouldn't he? He doesn't want to hurt her. Two have feelings for each other. It all leads to this odd kind of head. I don't want to say how it pans out, but let me just say this. It's well written, and a lot of it feels true to life. Some people complain that the book seems so inconsistent. Characters that are dead are now alive. Characters that were alive and dead. And even, it was as if Francine Pascal, when she wrote this, she didn't read all the other books, have her name on. You got to realize Francine Pascal was just an idea lady. She came up with a lot of ideas for the books, but somebody else already wrote them. This is the first one. This, she wrote all by herself. The very first. There were a lot of scathing reviews about this. I thought it was well written in a New York elegant kind of posh sort of way. It's very rare. See, but people didn't believe that, honestly, Jessica would get married to anyone, least of all who she wants getting married to here, and who Elizabeth winds up married to makes even less sense. People wanted to see Elizabeth finally wind up with Todd for good, and Jessica, well, I mean, her not getting married. She's like Samantha Jones from Sex and the City. She'll get married, divorced constantly, and go around the world roaming, having fun, looking for trouble, causing it. After this, there was a whole bunch of a lot of the characters come back, but they're barely mentioned. For example, Enid Rollins. I think a lot of people want to see her and Elizabeth tie things back up. Well, they do reconcile in a way. They're not really close buddies. She's become an extremist. She's a gynecologist who plans to run for city council. They would like to see her and Elizabeth bond again. Little Fowler's there, but she doesn't get to do much. And the sad fate of Winston Egbert, what happens to him, all I'm going to say is this. It is depressing, but it makes a strange, sad kind of sense. I think in a way, these things do happen, and at the end, the thing is, Pascal's trying to send us a message, a cautionary tale. It does happen, doesn't it? It is all too possible. It is all too real. And that's the saddest part of all. We really would all like to root for Winston, shouldn't we? But what happens to him, it's just... And hopefully, we all take a message. Jessica's taken something from that. Because if you remember the book series, he was always chasing after her. Yeah, I thought it really was a well-written book. I know a lot of it's all over the place, but you got to remember, the books were, too. They were spun out a whole bunch of different ways. There were all kinds of inconsistencies. These are just characters who exist to be everything. Anything at any given moment. And it's a good book. It's a good, worthwhile book. I think, honestly, you should probably read it before you buy it, but just know, it's like Episode 3 of Star Wars. Everything changes, nothing. You never quite look at it the same way again. I guess, in the end, it feels like the end of innocence. There are some endings, and there are some things that happen that somehow just seem kind of swallow. And there are some things in here that just seem kind of painful. It's not all wholesome and innocent. But it's a worthwhile book. At least read it before you cast judgment. Then write a review. Pascal herself did this one. There's no one to blame but her. Enjoy. Okay, I'm going to set something else up. Please stay tuned.